Hi, and welcome to Lecture 3. This is the first subsection of linguistics. So, in this lecture, what we are going to do is we are going to dig right into the first module of linguistics, which is articulatory phonetics. And what I'm going to be doing is, even though you are supposed to watch all of Lecture 3 this week, I am going to break it up into smaller subsections just for ease of uploading into Blackboard. So you will still have to watch all the videos, but it will be a cluster of Lecture 3 videos rather than one bulk big video that I'm going to upload on Blackboard. Reminder that you have readings for this week. This is from chapter 3 of your textbook, pages 62 to 89. So do make sure that you have your textbook by now and you have been doing the reading from the first chapter and now extra readings from chapter 3 of your textbook. So let's review where we are in this class. We have been asking the fundamental question or the big question that linguists are interested in answering, and this is what is the system of rules and expressions that underlie our ability to speak and understand a human language. We are going to refine this question a little bit for this section, the change in wording comes from the fact that we are not just talking about the rules and expressions, but we are really talking about what are the kind of mental representations that exist in your brain when you are speaking a language, when you are processing a language. And I have defined what a mental expression or a mental representation is for you. It is the information that is stored in our memory, which the rules of our linguistic systems operate over, right? So that's a mental representation. And we are starting with the primary thing that linguistics is concerned with, which is speech. Now, why are we interested in sound? Now, when we speak, we are producing some sounds, right? I am producing sounds that you, as a passive listener, you are listening to right now. But what you are doing when you're listening is that your brain is actually encoding these sounds and it is comprehending what I'm saying, and you are understanding what is going on in the speech form. So what we are going to do this week in phonetics is we are going to focus on the sound systems of human language, and we are going to be interested in two things. One, how are they represented in the brain? And two, how are they structured by various rules of language? Before we get into the idea of a mental representation of speech sound, I have to introduce a new terminology for the subsection, and this is a phone. In this semester or in this module, whenever we talk about a phone, we are talking about a speech sound. A speech sound is called a phone in linguistics. And so if we are going to talk about phones in linguistics, we also need to have a way of representing these phones in written text. Now, you might be wondering, well, what's the problem? I already know how to write English. I know the English alphabet. Can't we just use that? Well, the problem with using English or the English alphabet as the basis for writing or representing linguistic phones is that English spelling is actually rather ambiguous. So when you look at the word red, for example, you can either write that as R-E-A-D, the past tense of the verb to read, or you can represent that as R-E-D, which is like the color, right? So when you have a spelling R-E-A-D, you can either read that as read or red, right? So there are multiple ways in which you can pronounce the same sound. And there are also phones in other languages that don't exist in English. So first, one of the phones that don't exist in English, but if you know German, you might have learned this in German, is the sound right? So it sounds like a really deep sound that's coming from the back of your throat. And this is the sound CH in German, very often seen in a lot of Germanic sounding words in English, such as the Loch Ness monster. And or the sound in nahwash, 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 which is an indigenous language and a tribe found in Latin America. So what we are going to do today in this module is we are going to learn a new alphabet. Now, we are going to learn a new alphabet for two reasons. One, the alphabet that we are going to learn is not ambiguous. So if I teach you a particular symbol stands for one particular sound, and there is only one sound that is represented by one symbol. And the best thing about this specialized alphabet is that, well, you can represent all the world's languages with this alphabet. So you don't have to learn Japanese separately from English, separately from Spanish, if you know this specialized alphabet. What is the name of the specialized alphabet? This is called the International Phonetic Alphabet, or the IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. This alphabet has been developed over 100 years by the International Phonetic Association, and the two good things about this language is that it's completely unambiguous. There's one symbol per phone and vice versa. And secondly, it's universal. So all known human phones are represented by the IPA. What does it look like? Well, good thing is that in some cases it actually looks like the English alphabet. So you can see that S is a S sound, T is a T sound, H is a H sound in English. So I will be using the sound representations rather than the spelling. So just for the purposes of this class, let us throw spelling out of the window. All right. We don't care about spelling as much as we care about how we actually produce this particular sound. So let's not worry about spelling. All right. But the problem also is that the IPA differs from the English alphabet in certain cases. So for example, if you have the spelling I, it's pronounced as an E sound, and the spelling E is actually pronounced as an I, right? So you can see that E is I in English alphabet, like written English alphabet, and E is actually an I in IPA. So these are cases where people and my students actually get confused. So I will provide a handout for you. It will be up on Blackboard, and this handout will also be given to you during your midterm examination. So you have nothing to worry about. You don't have to memorize the International Phonetic Alphabet. That is nearly impossible in the event that we have only 2 weeks to cover the phonetics alphabet. So you will be given this handout for the examination as well, and you will be using this handout for your assignment. You will be using this handout for your pop quiz due this week as well. So just a note or notation that whenever you see something in the square bracket, that is IPA, and that is not English spelling. So that's really how you distinguish the IPA from English spelling. Now, I just showed you examples of the International Phonetic Alphabet, but how do you actually know what sound the symbols stand for? So for example, there is a phone in human language, and it is written like this. Right? And so this phone is called the shl, which we just saw in Nahwa shl. But this sound doesn't exist in English. So how would you, as an English speaker, know what this sound actually stands for? So what we are going to do is we are going to learn the IPA through science, right? Because that's what we decided to do last class, right? That linguistics is science, and we will create hypotheses and we will test predictions. So what we are going to do is we are going to take a class in human physiology, and the name of this class is called articulatory phonetics. So what do I mean by articulatory phonetics? It is the way in which a speech sound is produced by a human being. So here is an illustration of what I hope to achieve at the end of lecture 3. You can see that I have a speech sound written in the IPA symbol, which is a square bracket, and each of these sounds has a three-way distinction. So you can see S is a voiceless alveolar fricative, T is a voiceless alveolar stop, H is a voiceless glottal fricative, and SHLA is a voiceless lateral fricative. So the aim of this lecture is for you to understand what it means when I say a sound is voiceless, or a sound is an alveolar, or a sound is a fricative. So what we are going to do is we are going to look at the fundamentals of how articulation works in human beings and understand this with respect to the way that speech sounds are produced by the vocal cords and other organs in the human body. So here is an example of a sagittal section of your head, right? So this is the articulatory system. So you can see that you have your lips, which is right at the front of your articulatory system. Just behind your lips is your teeth, right? It's just behind your lips. And then you have the yellow portion of the figure, which is your tongue. And the tongue has different portions to it. So you have the tip of the tongue, right? The body of the tongue, which is the main body, and then the back of the tongue, right? The root of the tongue. And then you also have towards the end of your tongue and towards the end of your vocal cords, you have your epiglottis and your larynx, which is supposed to be your vocal cord. And then when you look at the portion, the top of your mouth behind your teeth, you can see that the portion immediately behind the teeth is supposed to be your alveolar ridge. Right behind your alveolar ridge is your palate. Palate can be divided into two, soft palate and hard palate. And then you have your velum, which is right at the back of the mouth. And the velum is crucial in deciding whether air from your stomach goes through your mouth or through your nose. So the nasal cavity versus the oral cavity, and how the air passes through the nasal or the oral cavity is decided by this thing right at the back of your mouth called the velum. Let us start with the tongue. The tongue is literally the most important actor in production of speech. Literally, we call the tongue the dance of the tongue because the tongue is moving constantly like this. This is the motion in which the tongue moves. Right now, my tongue is moving crazy and your tongue is in a static position because you're listening, you're not talking. But when you start talking, literally what you see is your tongue moves in all sorts of position. When we do the lab section for this class, I will show you a video of how the dance of the tongue when your tongue is moving in an MRI machine. So we distinguish the tip of the tongue, the blade of the tongue, and the body of the tongue is the three main places that are used as articulators in the articulation system. Moving on, let's move on to the glottis, which is right in the middle of your vocal cord. It is your voice box, right? If you don't have a glottis, if you don't have your larynx, you cannot speak, right? If you have a defective glottis or larynx, you cannot speak. So it's inside the vocal, it's inside the larynx. Your vocal folds is inside the larynx, and there's a tiny opening between these vocal folds, and that opening is called as the glottis. Now, your glottis can move, and when the glottis moves, you actually get this sound, right? So the glottis can either be closed or the glottis can be open, but the glottis can also come really close to each other and vibrate, and this motion is actually your sound, right? So this is the folds of the glottis coming very close to each other and moving and vibrating, and that vibration that you hear is your sound. The easiest way to do it is hold your arm on your glottis right now and speak something, and you will see that you can feel this vibration right now as you're speaking. And if you don't speak and you keep quiet, like me right now, there's nothing that happens. There is no vibration that happens. Let's move on to the velum. The velum, like I told you, is the back portion of your mouth. And it is the portion which helps you make the sound ka, ka, ka. I usually do this class face to face as an interactive session, so I highly recommend that you make these sounds along with me as you watch along from your laptops and computers. So when I produce a sound, make the sound along with me. It is good to get some practice with these sounds. So, ka, ka. So feel where your tongue is, feel what portion of your mouth is at play when you're producing the sound. So, what you are doing when you produce the ka sound is you are producing a sound by putting your tongue, or your tongue is in that position right at the back of the mouth. And I told you that the velum is actually very crucial in determining whether the air passes through the mouth or whether the air passes through your nasal cavity. So, what happens is when your velum is actually lowered, the air can go from your lungs to your nasal passage and out of your nose, right? So, lowering of the velum, the air goes through your nasal passage, and when the velum is higher, when the velum is in a raised position, the air goes through your mouth. So, when you make the sound m, 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 you can see that the velum is being lowered at this position. This is the nasal sound of English, versus ka, ka, ka. Your velum is in a raised position. Let's move on to the hard palate. It's the hardest area of the roof of the mouth, and to feel your hard palate, the easiest way to do it is to make the sound y, 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 y. And you can see that your tongue is touching the hard palate, or the hardest portion of the roof of your mouth. And let's move on to the alveolar ridge. This is the fleshy ridge just behind your teeth, your top teeth. And to feel the alveolar ridge, make the sound t, 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 t. In between the alveolar and the palatal region is called the alveopalatal region. It is in between the alveolar ridge and the hard palate. And this is the region that allows you to make the sound ch, 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 ch. You can see that it is beyond the alveolar region, but not quite at the hard palate. So this is the alveopalatal region. Then you have your teeth. Your teeth are crucial in making the sounds such as the, 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 the. And now you know the reason why if your grandfather or your grandmother, they don't have teeth, they actually will not be able to produce these sounds, because you need the teeth to actually say these sounds. And then you have your lips. Your lips are crucial in making sounds such as b, 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 m, m. All right, so this is a good breaking point for this video, and then I'm going to see you in the next video, where we will be talking about how do we actually represent consonants in the International Phonetic Alphabet.